Hey everybody, my name is Kyle. I'm doing my presentation on George Liele. It's based on the book George Liele's Life and Legacy: An Unsung Hero by David Shannon and Julia White. I just want to mention about the book. It was okay. I found it very hard to kind of follow along and kind of get a general idea. It was easy to get a general idea, but it was kind of hard to dig deep into kind of what made George Liele tick, and kind of understand his life and motivations and kind of that thing, is it was just a lot of random articles and kind of bits and pieces put together in a book through there. So it's a great idea. I felt like it was really hard for me as a person to kind of follow along with it. But other than that, I thought it was pretty decent, and kind of I following along with kind of what his life was like. So without further ado, let's hop into talk about Mr. George Liele. So first of all, I want to mention that George Liele was indeed the first ordained African American minister in Baptist history. After a life of just complete hardship, as he was born into slavery around 1750 in rural Virginia, and then was bought and moved into Savannah, Georgia by a man named Henry Sharp. This was the man who actually ended up freeing him later in his years, as he was brought to Christ and was allowed to minister to people. Henry Sharp felt that he deserved to be freed. So he began ministering to many, many people, enslaved, not enslaved, white, black, it didn't matter. He was talking to everybody and preaching to everybody, spreading the gospel like he should. As through this, he was able to create the first African American church in Georgia, at least laying the foundations for it. They're not entirely certain when it got up and running. But through this, he was able to really impact a lot of people in that rural Savannah, Georgia area. Now, as we keep looking into his life, we see that the Revolutionary War was just not a good time for him. It really began to uproot kind of his life, as his mentor and the man who led him to Christ was killed, as the British forces were kind of forced out of the Georgia area. So they began really impeaching on the idea of his freedom and not wanting to allow him to keep his freedom. So because of this, he decided to seek ministry opportunities elsewhere, and became the first Baptist missionary that we see in Jamaica, which was a British colony at the time. Now, a couple things about Jamaica during this time period: it was very heavily enslaved. Many of the Jamaican people were under slavery, and so Lyle's ministry did groundbreaking things, as he established the first church in Kingston, Jamaica. He also helped with the abolition of slavery, and ultimately led to massive, massive forms of religious and social reform in Jamaica. One of the things that I found really interesting that the book highlighted in George Liele's life was how he was able to keep his lifestyle and was able to kind of function as an independent missionary, not reliant on any of the foreign aid or any such as things like the IMB before it was the IMB and such like that. So he was a transporter and a farmer, so he would transport goods for people, and then he was ultimately a farmer, and that's how he fed his family. So through that, he was able to really cultivate a really nice ministry that was motivated by a lot of good things, such as like his gratitude for his freedom, as it was really hard to obtain it, and his struggle to keep it. It was ultimately up to the masters, and he just happened to have a really, really good one and a kind one, who showed him not only the gospel but also the freedom that comes with, whether it be spiritual and physical freedom that he was able to gain. And through this, he just had a radical conversion at a young age, which really divinely spoke to him as a way to preach. So this really, really started the kind of path that he led on, and really motivated him to kind of look at what he was called to do. And with this brought a lot of radical convictions in his life, such as the need for freedom and just his willingness to go and preach to everyone. And as we can see throughout his entire life, he was never, never weary of serving oppressed people. He always wanted to serve the oppressed and keep them going and keep them strong. So that's one of the things that I highly commend George Liele for. is his ability to just go out and serve and serve and serve and serve and serve. And through this, he was a very big advocate for education, as well. And we see that through his career, encouraging, you know, empowering enslaved people to learn how to read and write, in order to kind of get away from the enslavement that they had perceived their entire life. And then we see that his flexibility in his ministry was absolutely outstanding, as he was able to basically uproot his entire life, move to another country, and just get up from the ground and keep going. You know, through the struggles and all that stuff, he was able to kind of like stay on his toes and just bounce around and keep going without skipping a beat. So even though George Liele's life was not all sunshine and roses, and it was it was definitely a struggle and a hard fought life, he is one of the founders of the modern missionary movement, and really laid the groundwork for a lot of the things that we do and that we have done and continue to do in the Caribbean area. So that's George Liele. So thank you guys for listening. Have a great rest of your day.